Good evening and welcome to the Thursday, May the 23rd, 2019 regular session of the Xenia City Council. We're ready to get underway at this point in time, and we'll first have an invocation by Reverend Andy Spencer from First Church of Christ, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilman Dean. If you would rise with me, please, for the invocation and pledge.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this opportunity to meet. Thank you for the council that's spent so many hours working and doing what they can to make this a better place in Xenia. I pray for clarity of mind and wisdom as decisions are made and questions are asked and answered, hopefully, and things are discussed. Father, we're so grateful for this time of year, especially this Memorial Day weekend, remembering our men and women who died for our freedoms that we enjoy, and we're so thankful for that. I pray also for many families that also remember their loved ones who passed away this weekend, that you'll bring them peace. Thank you for this time of year, as it also represents many graduates from preschool, elementary, middle school, high school, college, and beyond, and the great celebration that goes on with that, the matriculation into the next thing or the next grade. We're just so thankful, and I pray that those families will have a job well done feeling and be able to celebrate and thank you for those achievements. I pray also for the summer, as many get to reflect and some get to take vacations and all that, be reunited with families or whatever it might be, that you'll bring that time of rest needed. Now again, I pray your blessings on this meeting, and may all that be said and done be pleasing to you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Reverend Spencer and Councilman Dean. I understand before we begin this evening, we have the Citizens Academy, several members present this evening. If you would stand, please.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much. We all appreciate it. I know the appointed officials and city staff appreciate your participation in that, and hope you enjoyed your time and found it educational in how the city does business. So again, thank you very much. Roll call, please.
Vice President Wallace.
Here.
Councilman Urschel.
Here.
Councilman Lauterbach.
Here.
Councilman Smith.
Here.
Councilman Dean.
Here.
Mayor Mays.
Here.
President Engel.
Aye, here. I'm having a night already. Sorry. At this time, we have opportunity for approval of minutes. First set of minutes before us are May 9th, 2019, the special session, please.
So moved, Mr. President.
Moved by Councilman Lauterbach, second, please.
Second.
Seconded by the mayor. Discussion or question on this set of minutes, please. Seeing none, roll call.
Vice President Wallace.
Aye.
Councilman Urschel.
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach.
Aye.
Councilman Smith.
Abstain.
Councilman Dean.
Aye.
Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Engel.
Aye.
Motion carried.
And now a motion, please, for the May 9th, 2019 regular session.
So moved.
Moved by the Vice President, second, please.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Lauterbach. Discussion or question on this set of minutes, please. Seeing none, roll call.
Vice President Wallace.
Aye.
Councilman Urschel.
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach.
Aye.
Councilman Smith.
Abstain, please.
Councilman Dean.
Aye.
Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Engel.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. We have no special presentation scheduled this evening, but we do have an opportunity for audience comments. Anyone wishing to address the Xenia City Council, please feel free to do so. Step to the podium, provide us your name and address. Limit your comments to 4 to 5 minutes, please.
Hi there, my name is Brian Johnson of 819 Wyoming Street, Dayton, Ohio. Good evening, how are you all, council members? And I just want to introduce myself. I have we're part of the agenda item at the end of the evening, Xenia Lives. And I just want to give a little bit of history about myself. We have been throwing community festivals and events like this all over the Miami Valley for about 6 years now, in downtown Dayton, Miamisburg, Troy, and elsewhere. We've always found that these types of fundraisers can do a lot for a community, and the specific point about the alcohol being addressed towards 100% of the proceeds of that would be going to the Downtown Xenia Now group for them to further their mission. We would not be taking any of that, and we further see it as like an incentive and something that people enjoy responsibly. This being in the afternoon, we also see it as like an opportunity for, there not to be too much indulgence, and we're also very self-conscious of those types of issues as we move forward. So I just want to introduce myself and I thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else care to address the Xenia City Council this evening, please?
John Calp, 936 Orville Way. Earlier this week, I sent an email to staff and to council, and I just want to thank Councilman Smith and Councilman Lauterbach for responding back to my email with the concerns. Tonight, you're going to be voting on a compensation adjustment for city council. Everyone up here, I believe, knows that I feel there's some positions within the city that are overly compensated. I don't think that's any big secret. But there's one position within the city that is extremely underpaid, and that's city council. When I was on council, or when I ran for council, it was $150 when I first ran for council. Then it went to $3,000, and I believe early on in my council career, we voted to have the increases every other year. But it went to council for a vote for those increases. And there were several years where council decided not to take those increases because of the perception of it. Defeated the whole purpose in the compensation increasing for council. The whole purpose of that compensation increasing was to try to get more citizens willing to run for council, better people to run for council. Not saying that anyone here is not good and didn't run for the right reasons, but we struggle to get good, qualified people willing to take their time to serve on council. So if there's any position within the city, in my opinion, that should probably be around $10,000. If you look at all the surrounding communities, most council members are making anywhere from $9,000 to $11,000 a year, and that's probably where it should be. In hindsight being 2020, I wish we'd made those increases automatic so that council didn't have to vote on them. But I fully support council taking these increases to continue with what the intention of the ordinance was, and that's so council could eventually get their compensation up to where it should be. Thank you very much.
Would anyone else care to come and address the Xenia City Council, please?
I'll get there. My name is Judy Evans, and I'm at 270 Mount Vernon Drive, and I live in apartment 301. And just for you folks who don't know where we are, we're at the end of Mount Vernon Drive, right down from the Job and Family Services. There's a couple of issues that I have been asked by our residents. We're 66 apartments strong, and we all vote, and we make sure we all vote, okay? We have a problem with police protection, and in that frame, the folks that live behind us in the meadows have a tendency to play the old West card night after night after night. They shoot. Some of the bullets come down in our parking lot. And again, now you're talking about older folks who can't run away from them. I was a police officer in Philadelphia for 11 years. I got shot straight in the middle of my stomach. My partner died. And I have I have PTSD from that. When those gunshots go off, my apartment is on the top on the corner. So it's just like they're coming through to my bedroom. We've asked the management of the Meadows to, in some way, shape, or form, rein their cowboys in up there and have them put their guns away. And these shots are normally from about 10 to 4 or 5 in the morning when they like to get out and play. The other thing I'd like to ask is, some of us have been extremely long residents there. Our road is terrible. I would invite each and every one of you to take your best car and come driving down Mount Vernon to see what I'm talking about. The potholes are ridiculous. They go from side to side. They go from front to back. And I know from 14 years of experience that our road has never been touched. Now, is everybody in Dayton or in Xenia the same way? Probably. But we have older folks who have cars. And as they get torn up, we can't afford. Most of us live on $800 or less a month. We can't afford to get our cars fixed every 2 or 3 weeks because it's knocking the bottoms out of our cars. The other thing that we want some help with is, again, referring to the meadows, they won't cut their trees off of our fence line. There is so much trash that has blown down from them that comes back, and we call them critters at night. We don't need that. Because again, some of our older folks will go out 8, 9 o'clock to throw their trash away, and they have to deal with possums, they have to deal with cats, and they have to deal with skunks. We've had to de-skunk several times. And it's just from the trash. And again, we're an older building. We invite you all to come anytime you want to. We'd love it if y'all would come and see us and, you know, see what we do. We've just finished making blankets for babies. We're community activists. All of us are. So again, these are things that I ask that you put us in touch with whomever is in charge of doing these things so that we can get our building and our older folks to get out. The other thing that we have a problem with is several of our folks are on chairs, little scooter type chairs. When you get to the end of Mount Vernon, there's no place for them to go safely across the street to the Job and Family Services building. It dead ends there. There's a little bitty corner, but again, there's no way to get those chairs across safely. I don't know if we can put a crosswalk there, like you have downtown, where you push the button and it flashes, but we've got to do something to be able to get our folks over there safely before someone gets run over. Those jazzy chairs are wonderful, they're not fast, okay? They really aren't. And these are our concerns, the major concerns, the police protection. We would like to request that officers make a roundabout in our parking lot. We don't have a big lot, 5 minutes there around the buildings and they can be gone. But we don't have that peace of mind of knowing that they're there watching us. So those are the things, those are the main things that we wanted to bring to council's attention. Again, because we're older folks, we've been at this for a lot of years. Not old, older. Okay? So I appreciate your time, and any help that you can give us would be greatly appreciated. And come see us. Just come see us, see what we do, see who we are. Thank you.
Thank you. And ma'am, thank you for the letter that you sent me. I'm sending it down to the city manager for his background, and I'm sure he'll be in touch with you.
Thank you, sir.
Would anyone else care to address the Xenia City Council this evening, please?
Good evening. My name is Thomas Scrivens, and by the grace of God and His mercy, I still reside at 725 Lexington Avenue here in the city of hospitality. Mr. President, I rise from my seat this evening to, number one, congratulate the citizens of the Police Citizens Academy who I saw in the paper, and I was just proud to see citizens wanting to learn how local government actually operates. And for all of the other Citizen Academy people, God bless you guys. It shows that Xenia is not dead on the vine, that there are still people who want to learn and who want to participate, and that's good. Mr. President, I'd also like to congratulate the council on a very successful neighborhood night out this week. I had the good privilege to attend, and it was well attended, and hopefully the next one will be even more well attended. It's a very good thing that we come out and see who actually we represent, and let them see who actually represents them. And it's just a good deal all the way around. So just want to say thanks for that, and looking forward to the next one. Want to thank Mr. Chris Berger, our Public Service Director / City Engineer, and Mr. Keith Cook getting his guys out and getting some yellow lines out here, sprucing up the place, making it look better and better. And the more yellow we put out, the better it looks. I was a little chagrined that we had the Hamvention here, and right there at the corner of Fairground Road and Ankeny Mill, that little island there, we need to yellow that, make it look like something, make that whole intersection look like something. And we just need to step it up just a bit more. Wanted to say that we're going to be breaking ground here shortly on the roundabout here at North Columbus Avenue and East Church Street, and we're very excited about that. I understand that the bids have been let out now, and they'll be breaking ground soon. I see they moved the gas lines and all the water lines and everything, so that's going to be a good thing. I've spoken to a few of you, and even the city manager mentioned the fact that we want to learn how to name roads or intersections or streets after certain luminaries. And we want to see how that process works. But tonight I'd like to put forward that we'd like to see, we being the East End Community Organization and the East High Preservation Group, like to see the roundabout named after our former mayor, James T. Henry. He was our first African-American mayor who served the city, and he served back during the day when the council selected amongst themselves a mayor, and he served with distinction. I remember as a child that there were a lot of properties in my section of town who did not have inside plumbing, and Mayor Henry was a spearhead for getting inside plumbing in the East End of Xenia, and that's one of his greatest legacies, don't you know. He lived about 9 houses up North Columbus Avenue from where our proposed roundabout is slated to be built. Memorial Day, I want to thank all of our veterans who have given their full measure for us, and we need to be mindful of that. And although the ones who didn't give their full measure, who got maimed, and I know a few who suffer from PTSD and still have shrapnel wounds and everything, we want to tell them thank you. And we tell them thank you by getting out and supporting whatever activities that are afoot to show that we care what they've done for us. They didn't have to do it, but they did because of what they felt inside. And that's something that we should always keep in the forefront when we enjoy our freedoms. Just like to say also that now that we've gotten East Church Street paved from North Columbus Avenue up to Patton Street, it's nice and smooth, and it's turned into an Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Everybody likes a smooth street. I enjoy traveling West 2nd Street, even though it's not completely finished, not been striped yet and everything. But we need to put some 25-mile-an-hour signs on the post on East Church Street, because there's some guys that ride the motorcycles and everything, and you hear them, and it's a blur. And it's just, I mean, there are people who live there, there are older people there, and there are children there, and we just don't need them flying up and down East Church Street. So if you would, get our public service people out and put some signs up, 25 miles an hour. It's a city neighborhood. It's not a motor speedway. Also, the lady referred to Mount Vernon. There's Mount Vernon, East 3rd, East 2nd, Kinsey Road between Main Street and the high school, Ottawa, North Patton Street. There are a number of streets that will be competing for funds for next year's paving project. So I invite everyone whose street needs paving come down and state your case. And maybe we can get your street paved this coming year. The biggest question that I've had to field since I left council is what are we gonna do with the plaza? Are we going to get a food store in there? I talked to Mr. Brodsky just the other night, our Director of Development, and so far, there's nothing out there. Now, there's Mark's, there's Save-A-Lot, Shop and Save, there's Mom and Pops. We have to encourage somebody, give them some kind of incentive to put a food store in the town square. We have 3/4 of our city is pretty much a food desert. And if they don't call you, they definitely call me. They stop me wherever I am, at the gas station, at the thrift store. I mean, they let me know, in fact, that they want something downtown. And with our block across the street here with the Y and the library and the former Senior Citizens Center, we want to know what the plans are for the YMCA. And if there's not going to be another outfit that's going to do that building justice, then we need to raise that building and consider putting up another senior citizen high-rise. The downtown area would be perfect for that, and it would be even better perfect if we could get a food store in that plaza. So just something to consider. And in terms of council salaries, I have the good pleasure of voting with former Councilman John there. John is right. I've looked at all of the salaries around the cities that are close to Xenia, and we're a bit below. And I looked at population versus salary, and it should be something we can consider. And then finally, Mr. President, I would like to say to you and to this council and to the people of the city of Xenia that I will be a candidate for council again come this fall. 3rd time is the charm, and we'll see how it works. I'm been told that they think I'm going to win. Well, you never know. So, it's in the hands of the voters. If the voters think that I'm who they want to represent them, I stand for them. And Mr. President, with that, I thank you, and thank you for the council for your time and for your consideration. Thank you.
Would anyone else care to address the Xenia City Council this evening, please? Seeing no one else come forward, we will move on.
President,
Yes.
before we go on, would you please, Mr. City Manager, provide copies of that letter that this lady sent to Council President, to the rest of us, so that we can have not only her name and address and the issues that she raised, because I would like to ask you answers to those questions, but I'm sure you were not prepared to answer them tonight, so. But I would like to have all of the issues that she's addressed as soon as possible.
Sure. Thank you. We'll move on to our next piece of business, which is public hearings, which will come under ordinance 2019-11, a second reading, amending the official zoning map of the city of Xenia, Ohio to rezone 14 parcels with the addresses of 602 through 614, 624, 634, 658 through 672, 680, 728, and 750 Cincinnati Avenue, comprising 6.3 acres more or less, from I-2 Heavy Industrial District to B3 General Business District, originally introduced by Vice President Wallace.
And I guess now we need to move for approval.
Thank you. Have a motion to approve. Second, please.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Lauterbach. At this time, we need to conduct a second public hearing, correct, Madam Law Director?
Correct. This would be your public hearing. Planning Commission had theirs, and now council must hold one.
Thank you. So at this time, I will open the public hearing and ask anyone wishing to speak for the amendment as just stated to step to the podium, provide us your name and address, and limit your comments 4 to 5 minutes, please.
I'm Rebecca Steinberger, and I am the property owner of 634 Cincinnati Avenue. And so I am one who has submitted the petition in order to have the zoning zoned to the B3. One of the reasons that we want to have that rezoned is the zoning that is there on the property listed is not actually a beneficial zoning for any of those businesses listed. We have, my business at 634 Cincinnati Avenue is a very light industrial. We are a small manufacturing company, and we would like to expand our business and our business opportunities, which with the zoning that we have now, we are not able to do that. We did work with the other members of those addresses in order to have it rezoned for them too, because with their business needs, it is not an appropriate zoning for them either. So we're just asking so that we can have it rezoned, so that we can have our future business endeavors, and also for in the future, if any of us need to sell our properties, that we are able to sell our properties with the intent of what the businesses are used for, without having a problem with the zoning, so that it would decline or deny any of the business sales that we would do. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else wishing to speak for this amendment step to the podium, please? Seeing none, I'll ask anyone wishing to speak against this amendment, please step to the podium, provide us your name and address. Limit your comments 4 to 5 minutes, please. Seeing no one step forward, anyone wishing to speak neither for nor against, but on the subject of this amendment, please step to the podium, provide us your name and address. Limit your comments 4 to 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll go ahead and speak. I apologize, I was absent at our last council meeting due to a work obligation, so I apologize for that. This applicant came to Planning and Zoning for our May 2nd meeting, and this was endorsed by Planning and Zoning 4-0. And if you read, it really truly makes sense. These applicants, they've spent a lot of time searching the residents of these properties, the owners of that, to get everything taken care of. So I'll be voting for this.
Thank you. Anyone from the audience wishing to speak neither for nor against, please feel free to step to the podium. Seeing no one come forward, I'll close the public hearing at this point in time. We've taken a vote to pass and a second. Any discussion or question from my colleagues on this particular issue? Yes, we have to pass it.
We need to make a motion now, I think.
We just took the motion, I do believe.
Yes, so there's a motion and a second. on the
Motion and a
table.
second.
So now we need to call the vote.
Seeing no discussion on it, roll call, please.
Vice President Wallace.
Aye.
Councilman Urschel.
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach.
Aye.
Councilman Smith.
Aye.
Councilman Dean.
Abstain.
Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Ingle.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. We'll now move to new business. First item under new business is ordinance 2019-12, an emergency, amending section 220.11 of the codified ordinances of the city of Xenia, Ohio, to adjust the salary of the mayor and council members and declaring an emergency. I have this item, and it is section 4.04 of the city's charter titled Salary of Members of Council and Adjustments, states that any ordinance changing the salary of the members of council must be adopted by June 1st of any odd-numbered year. Further, the annual salary adjustment shall not exceed 3%. As adjustments to the salaries of the members of council or mayor must be for future terms, the proposed adjustments will take effect for terms beginning on or after January 1st, 2020, and terms beginning on or after January 1st, 2022. With 2019 being an odd-numbered year, I respectfully submit the question to my colleagues and ask that you consider the attached legislation to increase the salary of future members of council and the mayor for terms beginning January 1st, 2020 and beginning January 1st, 2022. So I will make that motion and will request a second, please.
I will glad to second that motion, but I do have a question for the law director.
Yes, sir.
And can we, in addition to this ordinance, have a resolution that we would forward to the Charter Revision Committee to make sure that they delete that 3% language from the revised charter for the city of Xenia? Because as long as it's at 3%, it will never catch up with the other communities in our neighborhood, in our area. And it's ridiculous to ask that we do amount of work that we do, even though a few of us obviously are here to do it. But it's ridiculous that we would be the lowest paid people in the area, and there's cities smaller than us getting paid more.
Well, that was one thing, excuse me, that was already on our agenda as staff. One of the things that I find a little bit odd about that section is your salary's actually tied to your term. Salaries aren't typically done by year. Now, the way we've set it up so that we meet the charter is we've set it up 3% a year. But as you have staggered terms, that puts it on the finance department that every year they're tracking different salary. There's these salaries for these 4 positions and these salaries for these 3 positions. So that is on our radar to discuss with them. As the raises actually go with your terms, we would rather see, they wanted to do a limit for a 4-year term if the Charter Commission would want to recommend that. But those increases need to be tied with your terms, not annually.
And greater than 3%.
Councilman?
Are we open for discussion?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Beaver Creek Council went from 6,000 to 10,800. Kettering went to 9,300. Fairborn went to 7,900. Huber Heights went to 8,100. Well, of course, I'm for increasing our salary. I'd like to see a charter change. And I guess if we do a charter change, it would have to be voted on by the citizens.
That's correct.
I mean, that would be okay with me. I would campaign and lobby for it if I'm not in this seat. So,
That is definitely something we plan to review with the Charter Review Committee.
yeah, because I would like to see it set up like others. 3% a year, like Councilman Vice President Wallace said, is dropping the bucket. And we all up here put a lot of time in, believe it or not.
You do.
We go to other meetings, we get calls from citizens, we earn our money. And again, if I'm not in this seat, I will campaign wholeheartedly for a salary increase, but I would like to see a charter change, and that way maybe we get even with other cities.
I agree. We even, my department, we even called not just some surrounding cities, but some of the surrounding villages. Your salaries are lower than a number of the villages that are around us.
Thank you.
Councilman?
President, while I'm not necessarily opposed to the pay raise for compensation, I do find it a little bit, I don't know, odd to me that we get to vote on our own pay raise. I'd rather it be up to the citizens personally. It'd also be somewhat hypocritical for me to vote yes on this one. I just voted no on the administration's pay raise, so I'll be voting no.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments, please?
Just as a matter of clarification, council is not technically voting on their own raises, because the vote that you take will not adjust your raise during the term. So you would be adjusting the compensation for a future council.
Potentially, though.
Sure, it potentially you could be. I just wanted to make sure that it was clear that council is not voting to actually raise their own compensation. They're voting for the compensation of a future term, which certainly they could serve in that capacity, but there's also the possibility that someone else would be serving instead, so.
Thank you for the clarification. Any other discussion or question, please?
So, I'm with Dale on the context that I'd like this not to be a barrier for someone to come and serve, from a compensation standpoint. But on the other hand, just because we're given the funds doesn't mean that we have to keep it either. So there's some folks that can serve and have means to not have to do that, and I would encourage folks to do that, to go ahead and donate that. I donate all my council dollars to charity, but I know that there are folks that, and I'm a pastor and I don't get paid either, but I like donating my time as well. So, but I don't want to stand in the way of other folks that may financially need that, and we don't want that to be a barrier to folks doing that. So I'm not opposed, but once again, I'd also tell folks that just because we get these dollars doesn't mean that we have to necessarily spend them ourselves, and there's a lot of there's a lot of needy folks in our city and a lot of great organizations, and we can also use these dollars to help fund those groups as well, too, so.
Thank you.
Any other
Yeah,
discussion?
Mr. President, just for those that are watching, can we let them know what the salary is? I mean, this is not like big bucks. Our salary is what, 4,000 a year? I think
Your
it's
salary is
$300 a
currently
month.
about, your salary is currently $4,273 a year.
Mhm.
With the increases that you're voting on, for the first year of the new terms, it would be $4,402. The following year, it would be $4,534. The following year, $4,670, and the following year, $4,810. So even with an increase each year for 4 years, it still doesn't even get to $5,000.
It's not in the BMW category.
It's not.
Mr. President,
Yes.
just wanted to comment, because I know none of you are going to say this, but for the sake of the public who's listening and watching, these council members are constantly giving not only their time, but they all receive solicitations to give back to a variety of things, as Councilman Urschel sort of suggested, constantly. A lot of events that they're asked to go to where they have to buy tickets, often very expensive tickets. City generally doesn't buy those, with a few exceptions, but generally does not, and the council members do that. So there's a lot of giving back, and there are a lot of expenses that you guys incur with your roles. So I know none of you are going to say that, but I thought it should be put out there, so.
Thank you. And the only point that I would address, and not to disagree with any of my colleagues, whether this salary is $4,000, $5,000, or $10,000, you don't seek a seat on this council
Yeah.
because of the compensation.
Amen.
You are seeking a seat because you wish to serve. I am agreeable. I made the motion, and I wanted to clarify. I can't recall whether I made the motion or made the motion as an emergency, but I'm making this as an emergency and still have a second from the Vice President. I have made the motion and will support it, and I am very grateful to our law director who has thoroughly researched this against both the Ohio Codified Ordinances as well as the Ohio Ethics Commission to ensure that we are doing raises in a proper fashion for council. So, if there are no other
I would just like to make one last comment, and I'm making it because of the statement that Councilman Dean made. We are not, and Finance Director has intimated it, but I want to make it abundantly clear, we are not voting for our raise. We're voting for the raise of the next council and the next council. Whether or not we choose to run for re-election, those of us whose terms expire in 2019 is, and for me, yet to be determined. But I don't care who sits in this seat, next time, it's worth more than we're currently making. So that's why, and we have to do it as an emergency because it must be done under the law by June 1st. And this is May 23rd. So we've got to do it by June 1st in order to do it. So that's why it must be done as an emergency at this time. And obviously I seconded the motion, so I plan to vote for it.
Any other discussion or question, please? Seeing none, roll call.
Vice President Wallace?
Aye.
Councilman Urschel?
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach?
Aye.
Councilman Smith?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
No.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Engel?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Next item under new business is Resolution 2019-L, also an emergency, authorizing the city manager to execute and file an application with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources for the Nature Works Grant Program for the purpose of funding improvements to Shawnee Park and declaring it to be an emergency. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, sir. Staff is recommending the emergency motion this evening, which would authorize application to the Ohio Department of Natural Resources for this Nature Works Grant Program. The funding, worth approximately $47,000, is available to jurisdictions within Greene County for the development of outdoor recreation areas. If successful with the application, this funding would be combined with various other city funding sources, including the remaining park improvement bond proceeds, fee and lieu reserves for Shawnee Park, and unrestricted CDBG-related program income to cover expenses for replacement of the Shawnee Park playground equipment. In an attempt to avoid using our general capital fund dollars, we have cobbled together this alternative funding approach. which would allow us to get at least a Phase 1 completion of the playground replacement at Shawnee Park. The existing equipment is believed to be more than 20 years old, and its condition is diminishing pretty rapidly. Replacement parts are no longer available from the manufacturer, and portions of the equipment we've actually had to cordon off due to the state of disrepair and the lack of safety. And we've been advised by our insurance provider that equipment replacement should be a priority. We're requesting passage of the resolution authorizing the application as an emergency this evening in order to meet the state's application deadline and due to the fact that we have the 2 readings requirement for resolution. So this emergency action would allow us to get it in on time. We have on the screens provided for your convenience an overlay that would give you a sense of where the playground equipment is next to Emerson Road on the far east side of Shawnee Park. The new playground equipment, we've gone through an extensive outreach project with the community and with the schools to get input. It's been a sort of a champion project of the mayor, working with our city planner. This rendering on the screen right now shows you what the comprehensive redevelopment would look like. We are unable at this point to afford this entire cadre of projects. So what you would see with this first phase, where the cursor is now to the sort of right-hand side of your screen, is the main playground equipment. That's what would be replaced with this. We don't have the proceeds at this point to do everything else. We would get the paved walkway surface around the entire area. We'd get the new primary equipment. And based on some information I got just today with a planner, we think with some revised numbers and a couple other means that we can save some dollars, we would be able to afford the poured-in-place rubberized surface over this area, which has been a priority of ours from a safety and maintenance standpoint. So that would be a nice feature to add. Again, using a variety of different resources, trying to avoid general capital fund dollars. We understand folks still prioritize streets for that. But again, this project has been a priority of this council for obvious reasons. If you've been down there and have viewed the equipment, it is more than in need of replacement. So we're not guaranteed success with this grant, but your authorization tonight would allow us to apply for it, and we feel like that this would be a good project and we'd be competitive with it.
Thank you very much. May I have a motion, please, as an emergency?
So moved.
Go ahead, second.
Moved by the mayor, seconded by Councilman Lauterbach. My hearing
Yeah.
split second holds true. Any discussion or question on the motion, please, Councilman?
I would just like to say I appreciate staff going after grant money. Also, the park is a focal point for the city of Xenia. In 2010, the citizens voted to, we did, I think, close to $1 million in improvements. What was it, the retaining wall?
Retaining wall, we rehabbed the pavilion, had new roofing put on the pavilion, did quite a bit of work. Greatly improved the area down there. Still some improvements to go, and this is certainly one of them.
Yeah, but I'm very much in favor of this. Again, it's a focal point for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Mayor?
I would like to personally and publicly thank Mr. Forstner. He has been very active on this, and he's been very gracious in allowing me to look at different plans and have a say in it. And as a mother with young children who will play there a lot, thank you so much for your efforts. It is greatly appreciated.
And speaking for BRCA, we also had discussed this at length at a prior year's meeting and recognized that this is a significant priority, so I will be voting yes as well, as it is certainly in all of our best interests to be looking out for the safety of our children and our future citizens. Any other discussion, please? Seeing none, roll call.
Vice President Wallace?
Aye.
Councilman Urschel?
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach?
Aye.
Councilman Smith?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Engel?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Next item is Resolution 2019-M, also an emergency, strongly encouraging the Ohio Governor and members of the General Assembly to remove language from House Bill 166 that would require Ohio's municipalities to cover the state's negative distributions of tax revenue and declaring an emergency. Vice President Wallace.
I am moving the approval of this as an emergency. And I would just mention that, since the state decided they wanted to take over the collection of municipal taxes, they should have considered at the time that they needed to have the resources to do that job. We didn't ask them to do it. We didn't want them to do it. In fact, we don't want them to do it. And we shouldn't have to pay for them doing something that we were doing very well without them. So I can't speak enough about how strongly I feel about this. I think that the state is trying to take over more and more and more of the local government's responsibilities and funds, and we need to fight them on every opportunity.
Thank you. So we have a motion as an emergency. Second.
I think, did I second?
Did you second?
Can't remember.
You haven't yet. You have not yet.
I don't think
I
you have a
will.
second yet.
We hadn't had one
Good,
yet.
because I thought now I'm losing it again, and I can't remember whether we've gotten a second or not. So we have a motion and a second.
Yes.
Any other discussion, please? I would just encourage every citizen who's listening
Yeah.
and who is concerned about this encroachment by the state on the rights and home rule of cities, not just Xenia, but others. Please write your representatives, please write your senator, please write your governor and let them know how you feel on this issue as well. It's important that we take this stand and send this resolution to the governor, but it's equally, if not more important, that individuals write their representatives and their governor as well and tell them how they feel, letting them know that it's more than just one city council who wants to do right by their community and collect their own taxes and balance their books. It's the citizens who don't see that this is a proper exercise of power by the state. If there's no other discussion, I'll ask for a roll call, please.
Vice President Walz?
Aye.
Councilman Urschel?
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach?
Aye.
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Engel?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Next item is ordinance 2019-13, an introduction, vacating a section of June Drive in the Progress Center Section 1 plat between South Progress Drive and the Lanewood Number 4 Plat C, and the Lanewood Number 4 Part C plat within the corporation limits of the city of Xenia, Ohio. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, sir. The owner of 65 South Progress Drive, which contains an approximately 3,700 square foot commercial building, has purchased a vacant lot immediately to the north of their site on Progress Drive with the desire to expand the existing parking lot of their facility at 65 South Progress onto the vacant lot in order to make the existing building more marketable for a broader range of commercial tenants. The section of June Drive right-of-way separates the vacant lot from 65 South Progress. The right-of-way section in question does not contain a street, but does contain a bike path and utilities. The property owner has filed a petition properly requesting council vacate the above-mentioned section of June Drive in order to construct the driveway to connect those two lots and expand their parking. To this end, the petitioner has submitted the survey, the petition, and waiver of notification requirements in compliance with the Ohio Revised Code. Both our engineering and planning and zoning staff have reviewed the petition and determined that the vacation will not be detrimental to the community. The city does not intend to extend June Drive to connect with South Progress Drive, as this would result in an unsafe intersection because of its proximity to Progress West Main. The city does intend rather to maintain the existing utilities and bike path that is located within the right-of-way, but this can certainly be done with an easement. So this evening, staff is recommending introduction and ultimately approval of the vacation of this roadway, provided that the city retains the easement that encompasses those utilities in the bike trail.
Thank you very much. May I have an introduction from one of my colleagues, please?
So introduced.
Introduced by the Vice President. Thank you very much. Next item is Resolution 2019-N, appointing members to the City of Xenia's Charter Review Commission. Madam Law Director.
Well, as we've discussed tonight, charter review is something that we definitely need to do here in Xenia. Our charter, the current charter was last reviewed in 1998. There are some things that I think we feel, and I've seen as staff, that we can improve the efficiency of government. There's certainly things we can do to help improve transparency. So in November of 2019, we presented the citizens with the charter amendment to create a charter review commission. And the voters were very thankful, passed that. So this resolution tonight would appoint that charter review commission. Per the charter, we have to have an odd number of members. to the commission. So what we are recommending, we had 5 interested persons. The charter allows 2 members of council to serve. We are recommending that you appoint 7 persons. It will actually be a 5-member commission with 2 alternates who will serve as on-call subs if they're needed. Our hope is that those alternates will attend all the meetings if we need them to step in to allow us to reach a quorum. We've set a deadline for the commission to file a report to this council no later than July 1st of next year. That's going to give us about a year to get through as much as we can. We set that deadline in the hopes that if there are amendments that the Charter Review Commission recommends to you, you then have about a month to review them before we would have to pass those as ordinances to send to the Board of Elections to be placed on the ballot in November 2020. So any charter changes, the final goal is to get them in front of the voters.
Thank you very much. May I have an introduction from one of my colleagues, please?
Can I
Introduced by,
have a question?
Absolutely.
certainly.
5 members, and you said there's 2 council members.
Mhm.
With the 2, you already have 5 members, so would council members be part of, included in the 5, or would they have to be alternates?
They will be part of the 5. The 2 alternates, after talking to some of the applicants we had, Mr. Berger talked to Mr. Percival. He was interested in serving as an alternate. After talking to Mr. Scrivens, knowing that he's going to be running in November, he graciously agreed to be an alternate as well. If he wins in January, he would have to come off the commission. The problem if we had just done a 7-member board, if we have someone who's on who then wins election and they come off, then I've got a 6-member commission. So you would have to appoint someone who would be trying to catch up in the middle of the review. So we talked to Mr. Percival and Mr. Scrivens, and they were both interested in serving as alternates for us.
I think it's worth mentioning too, the other consideration that we had, we were a little concerned of the appearance that we would have already 2 sitting council members plus a former city manager and a former council member who would create a block of vote of 7 or 4 among the 7. We didn't want the appearance that we were loading up, with city leadership, a block within that group, because we want to promote that citizen participation, so.
Thank you.
Would you care to introduce Councilman?
Oh, yeah, I would. Yeah.
Introduced by Councilman Louderback. Thank you. Next item is an administrative motion authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with Moody's of Dayton for the cleaning and redevelopment of wells number 2 and 4. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, sir. As part of our preventative maintenance program for our water treatment production wells, the city annually inspects, cleans, and reconditions as necessary wells on a rotating basis. This year, wells 2 and 4 are due for treatment. As described in your agenda report, staff has conducted a competitive bid process for the service, the specs for which included both the base inspections, cleaning, and redevelopment, as well as pump and motor replacement functions as necessary and authorized if they deem it's appropriate given the condition of those wells. Moody's of Dayton was the low bidder, and our prior experience with firms gives us confidence in their ability to be the best as well. So we recommend a motion this evening to award and execute a contract with Moody's of Dayton for the cleaning of the wells and replacement services at a combined not-to-exceed amount of $68,550.
Thank you very much. May I have a motion, please, to authorize the city manager to enter into and execute the contract?
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Louderback. And second, please.
I'll second that, Mr. President.
Second by Councilman Smith. Discussion or question on this motion, please.
I will just add, Mr. President, that our
Yes.
Citizens Academy actually is attending, their next session will be a tour of our water plant. So we'll be talking about these types of appurtenances to our system, and so they'll be able to put some of this in context when they see it next week.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Seeing no questions, roll call, please.
Vice President Wallace?
Aye.
Councilman Urschel?
Aye.
Councilman Louderback?
Aye.
Councilman Smith?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Mayor May?
Aye.
President Engel?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Next item is an administrative motion authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with Fryman Cuck General Contractors and Company for the Garcia and OVCH lift stations and Force Main project. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, sir. Recommended this evening is a motion to authorize a contract with Fryman Cuck General Contractors Incorporated. This is for completion of 2 similar sanitary sewer infrastructure projects. The first component project includes the installation of mechanical and electrical appurtenances necessary to activate the OVCH lift station for sewer service to the area of the Green Regional Business Park, which generally is the area south of US 35 of the former OVCH campus. While the lift station has been anticipated at the site for some time, the prevailing strategy was to wait and expend these funds for a project at a point in time when the site required the services out there. We have now reached that point with the new ODOT facility in the business park set to come online later this year. In addition to the Greene County Career Center currently under construction on the property adjacent to the business park, both of those sites would be served through this appurtenance. To get the best possible value for the city, we have also aligned the bid for the OVCH lift station to also include a second project component for the reconstruction of the Garcia Road lift station. This project has been in our CIP for a number of years. We've been kind of pushing it back in anticipation of combining it with this. And the purpose of combining the bids together is to give us an economy of scale, which we know will save the city by having a larger project. We felt we would get better bids. The Garcia Road lift station is currently in service, but it is a frequent maintenance challenge for our city maintenance staff. On a regular basis, when we receive heavy rain events, it's necessary to utilize our vac truck out there at that site. That we do this because we have to pump that station down. Its capacity is not sufficient when we get these heavy rain events, and we have to pump that station down in order to avoid any catastrophic failure due to inundation and potentially a sanitary sewer overflow event. So the project would replace and upsize the pumping capacity of that Garcia Road lift station. Staff developed the specs and bid packet for the combined projects, which resulted in 2 qualified bid submittals. The lowest bid evaluated and confirmed by our city staff as well as our design engineer consultant totaled $586,007.35, again by Fryman Cuck General Contractors. The bid does meet all requirements, and as such, we recommend City Council authorize a contract with the firm at the not to exceed cost as submitted.
Thank you. May I have a motion, please, to authorize the city manager to execute the contract?
So moved.
Moved by the Vice President. Second, please.
Second.
Seconded by the Mayor. Any discussion or question on this motion, please? Seeing none, roll call.
Vice President Wallace?
Aye.
Councilman Urschel?
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach?
Aye.
Councilman Smith?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Mayor May?
Aye.
President England?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Next item is an administrative motion authorizing the sale of craft beer at the 2019 Xenia Lives Music Festival to be hosted in downtown Xenia. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, sir. City staff was approached by principals from 10 High Productions who were interested in pursuing production of a music festival for downtown Xenia. Through our initial planning dialogue, our staff was impressed with the group's approach, their excitement about Xenia, their optimism that an annual music festival could be successful in our community to promote our downtown businesses and the downtown culture in general. Staff recommended the group submit a formal special event application, which the group did, and we have since received the application as well as the event proposal and various other documents demonstrating thoroughness in their planning and preparation. Those were attached to your agenda report. The Xenia Lives Festival would provide a unique musical event not currently offered in our community. The festival would be, of course, easily accessible as a cultural event for Xenians, but equally important, it would provide a platform to attract regional attendees to visit downtown Xenia, expose them to our downtown businesses, and we feel that these types of events offer really invaluable marketing for our downtown and for our community. The festival itself can be administratively approved for the city manager's office. However, pursuant to section 1062.21 of our code, any alcohol sales on city property or right-of-way would require approval by motion of city council. Alcohol sales at the event would be in conjunction with our very own Devil Wind Brewery, located downtown here, and profits from the sales would benefit our Downtown Xenia Now organization. This is our partner organization for our downtown revitalization efforts. After thorough review of the event proposal and discussion with our police, fire, and public service staff, we are recommending council approve a motion to allow the sales, subject to permitting through the Ohio Liquor Control, as well as sign-offs by our local authorities.
Thank you. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Lauterbach. Second, please.
Second.
Seconded by the Mayor. Any discussion or question on the motion, please?
I'm sorry, can I go first? I have a couple questions. Like the budget, who's, for sound and stage and talent, who's paying that? Who's paying for those items?
So this would all be coordinated through the efforts of the production team as well as through Downtown Xenia, now through Green Giving. And so, as indicated in some of the attached materials, they're looking for sponsorships and some other means as part of that overall funding. Sales of the craft beer through Double Ones would go toward the Downtown Xenia now, but they're hoping that through the sponsorships and the food truck permits or whatever, the fees that they pay, that would be the revenue to cover a lot of those core costs.
And then I'll stop with the questions, but is this gonna be operated like Shawnee Park, where it's
So what we would do.
regulated and there's a cutoff time and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff?
so what we would do is part of what we would require, in order to get the F permit through liquor control, it does have to be signed off by the police chief locally and administratively through our office with our special events application. So we would sit down with the organizers and we would make sure that in fact, we've already had preliminary discussions with staff talking about the necessary security infrastructure from a safety standpoint with the fire and EMS, what we would need to do. So the entire area does have to be cordoned off, so you'd have an area that would be fenced off, and then we'd have the necessary security around there. And again, those are some of the requirements that liquor control would have, even over and above what we would require locally.
Okay. Thank you, that's all the questions that I have.
Any other comments, questions, please?
Yeah, so I did some research with the Centers for Disease Control, and I just want to bring to the notice of the council and the public in general some items here from the CDC. First is that they say that binge drinking is the most common, costly, and deadly pattern of excessive alcohol use in the United States. They said this typically happens when men consume 5 or more drinks or women consume 4 or more drinks in about 2 hours. They also said most people who binge drink are not alcohol dependent at that point. And they talk about, once again, this is from the CDC, that they have correlation of binge drinking has the following of health effects. Unintentional injuries such as car crashes, falls, burns, alcohol poisoning, violence including homicide, suicide, partner violence and sexual assault, sexually transmitted diseases, poor pregnancy outcomes including miscarriage and stillbirth, and fetal alcohol spectrum disorders, and SIDS syndrome effects as well too, as well as some memory and learning problems and alcohol dependence. Now why do I bring that up? So if you go to the Greene County Public Health folks, they do surveys of alcohol consumption within Greene County, and each of the public health folks do that. Binge drinking occurrence within Greene County is at about 22%. So what they say is on a regular basis, 22% of the adults in Greene County participate in binge drinking. And we happen to be the largest percentage of binge drinkers from a county perspective of any county in Ohio. So I would proffer that we have an issue within our county that we have folks who do not drink responsibly. And those effects that I talk about, we're already seeing across the board. And the repercussions of those things have massive costs to our city and county and state infrastructure because they have to be paid for at the end of that. One other item to bring up is that the binge drinking within Greene County has increased by 40% over the last 15 years. So we're in a trend that's going the wrong way within our county. And we desperately need to be taking some measures to address this because once again, binge drinking is not disassociated from, let me go over those health effects again, right? Injuries such as car crashes, falls, burns, alcohol poisoning, violence including homicide, suicide, partner violence, and sexual assault, unintended poor pregnancy outcomes including miscarriage and stillbirth, and fetal alcohol spectrum disorders. Let me tell you, those things are permanent for the rest of a child's life at that point, and somebody's going to have to address those things in the long term. I appreciate what's going on with Devil Wind and the folks that, they've got a niche market within the craft beer and lager market, but I would also bring up too that the craft beer and lagers have 20 to 40% more alcohol content per volume than normal beers that folks are drinking. So many times folks will say, hey, I can handle this within this content, but they don't really realize they're not used to drinking craft beers and lagers, that the alcohol content is much, much higher in terms of what they're consuming. And I would also add that binge drinking from the CDC's research goes across the spectrum of income levels and educational levels too. So this isn't constrained to one marketplace that we might be able to say, hey, this craft beer consortium really is not targeting folks who are binge drinking. These are the responsible drinkers. I'll just tell you that it goes across the whole spectrum. And I grew up in a family of binge drinkers, and they were industrialists, okay? And these were folks who were extremely wealthy in my family, and my dad was a binge drinker, and I had many aunts and uncles, and they did very well in life, but they consumed alcohol to excess, and many of these effects that are talked about here I saw come out in my own family as well, in the lives of family members. So the CDC has requested that municipalities, they said there's things that we as individuals are responsible for, there's things that we're responsible for as families, but they also have recommendations to us as municipalities too. And they have a whole list of those things that we could be doing. One of the things that they recommend is that municipalities don't pursue open-air container events, because they say that they have a trend that those events encourage, from a consortium aspect, to people to continue to drink. It's just part of the atmosphere of an open-air container event, especially as it lasts across a period of time. And so one of the requests that the CDC has to municipalities is to not to encourage or pursue open-air container events. Now, I know a lot of times these are being advertised as benefits to the community and fundraisers, and we look at the initial cost benefits of those things. One of the other things the CDC has come back and said is that the cost to communities is 5 times any profits that are being consumed or obtained from that. And primarily, it's the cost of addressing the health effects. Okay, so I get that our brethren in the business consortium are looking at this as a fundraiser, but those folks don't have to deal with the health effects. Okay, so that's left to us as a city, that's left to us as a county, and left to us as a state to have to address those things. Once again, what am I talking about? Car crashes, falls, burns, alcohol poisoning, violence, including homicide, suicide, partner violence and sexual assault, sexually transmitted diseases, poor pregnancy outcomes, miscarriage and stillbirth, fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. So once again, those items have a massive cost to our community that aren't being addressed within the initial cost benefit of selling beers and donating those profits, okay? When we do this, once again, this isn't someone's opinion, okay? This is the CDC coming back telling us these are facts, this is what we're dealing with as a community. And so they're telling us, community, wake up when you do these kind of things. These are the types of costs you will be incurring, and you as a community do get to address that. So, I agree with the city manager. He says budgetary impact, there's no direct impact, but I say there's a massive indirect impact that we will be bearing both as a city and as a community, and we cannot avoid those things because there's a direct correlation with them. I would also say that we can do a lot of really amazing community events without incurring any of these costs or health impacts. And once again, I'll just give you an example of our community night out. We had a broad spectrum of our folks when community come, had a great time, and didn't have to participate in any activities that are going to cause these type of health impacts. And so I think we as a city council and as a community ought to be endorsing those types of activities. And once again, if we were living in a nation or a county where folks are responsible drinkers, and we did not see that we had this level of binge drinking going on and the type of health effects, I get it, okay? And listen, I've traveled in Europe, and I know there's parts of European culture that do this fairly well and don't have these type of impacts, but I'm telling you, we live in Greene County, okay? And we do not have responsible drinkers in our county, and we are seeing these types of impacts. And so I as one, cannot condone us, from my vote, to endorse this kind of activities. And once again, I'm not disparaging the folks who are trying to promote the event. I'm not disparaging the Devil Wind Brewery. I'm just saying, because of these types of impacts and the fact that in our county, the trend is going the wrong way, we need to make sure what we are and are not endorsing as a city and as a council. So I believe it's foolish for us to endorse these type of activities. And I am going to be voting no, and I encourage the rest of the council members to do so as well.
Thank you. Any other discussion or question, please? Councilman?
Before you was on council, Councilman Urschel, the community festival, we debated that among us, the council, and with staff. We ran that as a test case. And I think the city manager can attest to the fact, and the police can attest to the fact, there was not one incident. Is that correct or is that incorrect?
Yeah, I think we can speak both on behalf of the festival. We've also had discussions with the folks who run the beer sales at the Greene County Fair, and they've had actually fewer incidences, for example, at the fair, because they have it in a controlled environment rather than people just outside the gate, so to speak. So to your initial question, yeah, I think now 3 years that we've done sales with the, not we, but the festival organization, the sales at the festival, not one incident that we can point to.
And I'm sure, knowing you and your staff, you've met with the folks, and that there has to be something in place to prevent overindulgence. And could you address that?
Yeah, and so there are provisions in place. The license holder is ultimately responsible for those sales, and so I think we have a pretty good authority that Devil Winds would not position themselves to create a liability for themselves. And of course, as required with that permit process, we certainly will have measures in place to make sure that we're providing the necessary security and taking steps to make sure that we're minimizing any adverse impacts.
And we're a diversified community. Just because you have a beer doesn't mean you're a bad person. So I will support this issue. Thank you.
I would just add that once again, many of these health impacts are not immediate impacts. They're not observable at the event. They trail on afterwards. So I understand the context, and we can make an observation that we did not perceive assaults happening at the event. But fetal alcohol disorders don't happen at the event. Okay, they happen months later, and then they last for a lifetime. And no, the city's not tracking that. We have no observation, but we know. But what is happening is we are seeing a massive occurrence of that within our county. Okay, so that's happening somewhere within our county, right? Okay, the partner violence many times doesn't happen at the event, but it happens after the event. Okay, when back in the privacy of someone's domicile, and many times those aren't reported till way later on either. And so all I'd add is I get that we're going to try really hard to make sure these things, the direct impacts, will not be observed or condoned at the event. But the types of impacts of this of drinking and the abuse of that within our county don't come out right at the event. They come out way later, and yet the impact lasts a lot longer. And once again, I'm not saying there's a direct correlation of this event is going to have those type of things. I'm just saying in general, we've got a real problem in this county. And so what the CDC has come back to us and says, in general, you need to be working as a municipality as well as other organizations to set a tone to start addressing those kind of things. And so I agree with that, with this recommendation the CDC has to us from a municipality perspective to not condone open air container events where alcohol is being promoted within the content of that.
Any other discussion or question, please?
I'm sorry, I said I was done with questions, but I actually have another one. So on this page that we're looking at, this red area, is that all blocked off? Is that
that would be the area that would be permitted as part of the application for sales. So that area does have to be cordoned off.
So that's Montgomery Insurance, and they're, I'm assuming they're on board with this.
Correct,
They already
yes.
know this. Okay. So, well, how much impact to traffic is that?
Yeah, we've discussed that quite a bit.
Okay.
No more so, and actually probably less so than what we would see for our First Fridays event. We've already been in contact with ODOT, both relative to actually First Fridays as well as this event prospectively. We want to do a little bit better job of intercepting traffic coming from South 68 to detour them, because that turn there from Home Avenue onto Detroit Street, once you make that turn, there's really no good place for a semi to go. So we want to detour them further out off of 35. So we've had some preliminary discussions about the impact of traffic. Again, Saturday afternoon, high summer, we don't expect there to be a whole lot of traffic. But again, as we do with other events, whether it's Hamvention or First Fridays, we would promote in advance to the public that there would be some detours for that day.
Thank you.
Any other discussion or question, please?
I have a question for the law director. How many votes do you need for this ordinance to, this event to pass?
Well, this is a resolution, it's not an emergency, so it would take 4.
Because
Oh, I'm sorry, it's an
Simple motion.
administrative motion.
Yeah.
Administrative motions, it's still.
Still
4.
four.
I respect what Councilman Urschel has had to say regarding binge drinking, and I would hope that in an event like this, we would discourage binge drinking, and that we would be vigilant, and that the police on duty would be vigilant about watching folk that went over 3 or 4 drinks. I'm from the perspective of a person who's been in recovery for over 32 years, who did a lot of binge drinking in my day. And I thank God that I didn't get in any more trouble than I did during my binge drinking days. But since I am today clergy, I'm inclined to abstain. I don't want to say that we shouldn't, that the city shouldn't do this, or the city shouldn't encourage, but I think we should be aware that binge drinking can be a problem, and that certainly we want to convey that to our police and to the promoters of the event. But I will be abstaining, and that's why I want to know how many votes. I'd like to see the event go on, but at the same time, I don't want it to go on with my vote.
Any other discussion or question on the motion, please?
We're figuring things out.
I'm going to say, let's take a moment, and if there needs to be clarification for council before we vote.
An administrative motion, if there's an abstention, it would be a majority of the quorum.
Yeah, so our resolutions and ordinances require 4 affirmative votes, but in this
Okay,
case, this
the
is a
whole
simple,
council.
yeah, this is a simple, would be a simple majority of the quorum.
It's a majority of the quorum. A quorum of 7 is 4.
Still requires 4 votes.
If you have an abstention,
Well, you'd have to have.
If you have an abstention, then you have a tie, so the measure would
the
not pass.
abstention doesn't count for or
Right,
against.
So, but there'd be insufficient votes to approve it.
Okay. Any questions from
We have to see.
council regarding clarification provided? Any further discussion on this matter? Seeing none, roll call.
Vice President Wallace.
I'd like to pass and see what the vote is at the conclusion, but since I
can't
said I
pass.
would abstain.
Councilman Urschel.
That's a cheat.
Do I have the option of passing?
Yes, you do.
I pass.
Councilman Urschel.
Nay.
Councilman Lauterback.
Aye.
Councilman Smith.
Aye.
Councilman Dean.
Aye.
Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Ingle.
Aye.
Councilman Wallace.
Abstain.
Motion carried.
Should I have asked you if you'd like to phone a friend? And our final administrative motion of the day, approving the schedule of bills in the amount of $854,501.23. Mr. Finance Director.
Thank you, Council President. I would just note that at a recent meeting, council did authorize the city manager to enter into a contract for general liability insurance. That is one of the payments. We actually pay one lump sum for liability insurance, so that's why the schedule of bills is a little larger than what it may typically be.
Thank you. A motion, please, to pay our bills this evening.
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Councilman Lauterback, seconded by the Vice President. Any discussion or question on our bills, please? Seeing none, roll call.
Vice President Wallace?
Aye.
Councilman Urschel?
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach?
Aye.
Councilman Smith?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Engel?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. This time, we have an opportunity for reports of committees. First, Planning and Zoning, please. Councilman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, my apologies for last meeting's absence. My report for Xenia Planning and Zoning is basically a repeat of what we voted on, ordinance 2019-11. Then that was the only item on the agenda for Xenia Planning and Zoning. Other than the approval of the minutes was the public hearing, and that was endorsed to City Council 4-0. The next Planning and Zoning meeting is scheduled for the first Thursday in June at 6 o'clock, and that will be June 6th. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything for Councilman Smith in Planning and Zoning, please? Next is mayors and managers. Mayor Mays or Mr. City Manager?
I'll take it, unless you really want to.
You go right ahead.
We did have our last meeting of the spring. We will be taking a 3-month hiatus during June, July, and August. At this meeting, we did have a legislative update, and we continue through OML and our Mayors and Managers Association to watch the state budget conversation very carefully. Still being debated in Columbus, and so I think we'll have a better report here in the next couple days, because that budget deadline is approaching pretty rapidly. We did also have a presentation from Scott McGowan, and he is one of the principals from the firm McGowan Bender, which is pretty well known in the Dayton region, providing various benefits consultation services, and very, very good inspirational message for Mr. McGowan. So again, last report we'll have for this term, and then we'll be back with our regular meetings in September.
Thank you. Anything for the mayor or the city manager for mayors and managers, please? Last item, Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission. Councilman Lauterbach, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Due to a work conflict, I was not able to attend that meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything for Councilman Lauterbach and MVRPC, please? Moving to appointed official reports and council comments, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, sir. Just a couple of items this evening. Do want to acknowledge our neighborhood night out that we held over this week. Several members of council that were able to come out. I want to thank all of our staff members. That's an extra 2-3 hours in the evening that they come out and they spend connecting with people. We serve up some food. I also want to send out a huge thank you to our partners, specifically Xenia Community Schools, for allowing us to use their fantastic site there at Shawnee Elementary. Had a lot of other partners. Kroger's been a huge financial sponsor for the event this year. We also have different groups, including our local municipal court victim advocacy there. U.S. Army recruiting services were out. Various county services, Ohio Means Jobs, so forth. Had a great, fantastic event. Weather was a little iffy right up to the event. We ended up with a real good evening and just a fantastic turnout. And just as one individual testimonial, met a family all clad, mom, dad, 3 kids, all clad in University of Wyoming gear. And they were a family that has relocated as part of his service in the United States Air Force, and they located here to Xenia. So just another example of the impact of the base here in our community, and we're very pleased to be able to welcome them to our community. So great event. Our next neighborhood night out will be in August, and we'll be promoting that through the summer here and encourage folks to come out. We hold these in individual neighborhoods, but they are open to the entire public, so we encourage folks to come out, participate, learn about our services in the city, meet some of our staff, meet school staff, understand what's going on in the community. Thank you to our...
Is where and when?
I'm sorry?
August is where and when?
I don't have it right here, but it is at Arrowwood, and it's August. Does anybody have it? Jared doesn't have it there. I don't have the date with me, but I will get it to you, and we will promote it here. Citizens Academy, I wanted to thank the folks from the Citizens Academy that come out tonight. We have 3 sessions remaining where we're going to talk about our public service department and tour the water plant. We're going to do a tour of our Justice Center, talking with police and dispatch and talking about those services, and then round out this session with a tour of Station 31 and talk about fire and EMS services. So it's been a great group so far, full of great questions, and we're excited because some of these folks have expressed some interest in volunteering, and you better believe we're going to sign them up. So
The neighborhood night out is August 28th at Arrowwood and September 18th at Cox Elementary.
Johnny on the spot. I wanted to let council know we are working on various projects. Just let you know that we have them in the queue, some things that have been significant discussion items for council. That includes building inspection, plan report, Xenia Town Square site plan, several other big projects. So lots of things in the queue. We'll be coming back in the coming weeks this summer with some more comprehensive updates on those items as we promised. A couple last things. Want to remind folks that our offices are closed Monday for Memorial Day. So please be aware of that. We will open for normal business next Tuesday. And then finally, did discuss with the council president last evening. We have several incidents or several updates on a couple of items related to sale or purchase of land, as well as economic development. And so I will be requesting an executive session to follow the meeting tonight. Apologize, hate to do that to you all, but there are some matters that are urgent that I do need to update council on. And so we'll request some time this evening. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Anything for our city manager, please? Mr. Finance Director.
I have nothing else this evening.
Thank you. Anything for our Finance Director this evening, please? Madam Law Director.
I had one follow-up item. We had had some discussion with council, not sure if it was the last meeting or the meeting before, about if you had any interest in moving your meeting times to 6 for the summer months. If that's something council's interested in, I'd be happy to prepare the administrative motion for you for your next meeting. Wondering if that was something you guys wanted to do. We talked about it, but.
Pleasure of my colleagues, please.
But I know I am for the 6 o'clock for several reasons. Like one tonight, we start at 7, here we are at 8:30. We're going to be in executive session maybe till 10 o'clock. Now, it might inconvenience some people at 6 o'clock, but I would prefer meeting at 6 o'clock.
Thank you. Other thoughts, please?
I would concur. We've been planning and zoning from 7 to 6 and actually seen better attendance, both not just from the commissioners, but from the audience, because, so I would like to see that happen.
Would it be council's pleasure for us to look at the meetings June, July, August? Is that what we're thinking, that range?
Please.
Yes.
Give it a try. If you like it, we can make it permanent.
Okay. Thank you. Please arrange for our next session.
That was all I had. Thank you.
Anything for our law director this evening, please?
Yeah, let's just make sure we get that word out well. Because once again, we've trained our community to 7, right? And if we switch to 6, so I know sometimes we put that on the site, but it's in a fairly nondescript font and type, and we probably need to really highlight this if we're going to be moving the meeting time.
Thank you. Anything else for our law director, please?
That was really common for our city clerk because she does the site, not you, Donna.
I'd say that's my partner in crime.
That's right. Okay, thanks.
So moving on to council comments, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, sir. I'm planning to change the format of how I report back to you, so I'm working with our city clerk, and we're gonna be putting my schedule and information on the website so that I don't have to sit here and you guys have to sit through 2 weeks worth of activity. So that also gives me an opportunity to highlight certain things better. So just 2 things I wanna highlight tonight. YRC, they are under new leadership. I was out there to do a opening ceremony, and it literally, as I pulled in the driveway, I could tell a difference. They're mowing twice a week. They are on top of it. They're not charging to park. I mean, it's just, they're doing a phenomenal job. We had so much fun out there. I got to throw a first pitch and pray over the teams and just and bless them. So just wanted to give a shout out to the new YRC leadership and thank them for the work they're doing. And then I also wanted to mention Hamvention and thank all the staff and our public service that participated in that and made it happen. This was my first year attending, and it was quite the experience, one I had never had before, and it was amazing to be there and to see the amount of people. We met people from Sweden, from Munich, from I believe Austria. There was a woman there from Japan who is a nationally recognized singer in Japan. It was, and not to mention all the people from out of state. So it was really a great event, and I just wanted to thank the Xenia leadership that participated in that and made it happen. So thank you so much, and that is all I have.
Thank you.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Could I just interject real quick?
Please.
One thing I forgot to mention earlier, I was reminded that our splash pad at Xenia Station does open tomorrow, just in time for an 80-degree holiday weekend. So be remiss if I didn't announce that tonight.
Thank you very much. And I get to ask the mayor, did she throw a fastball, curveball, or gutter ball?
I threw it over the plate.
Okay.
That's all that matters. From the pitcher's mound to the catcher, and it was straight, it was over the plate, and I did not make a fool of myself, thankfully, so. We're gonna leave it at that.
She was only 10 feet away from the plate, but she.
I said the pitcher's mound, thank you. There's a lot of pressure that day.
Councilman Lauterbach.
Thank you. I just want to piggyback on the hamvention. I talked to the director today, and he said it's the best hamvention ever. So, and they are in negotiations to have a 5-year contract in Greene County, so I hope that comes to fruition. Also, I mention this quite often, but if you have potholes, 376-7265. If you call that number, we will have somebody out there. How often do we fill potholes?
Several days a week, depending on the schedule. For example, the crew was out striping downtown today, as Mr. Scriven said. So they have those activities as well, but we have crews out on a weekly basis, so several times a week.
So they probably, if they don't know of wherever pothole is in the city, so if you call, that I'm sure you'd be on the
Within a couple
preferential
days,
list.
yep. Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Also, as far as the craft beer, I would never vote on anything that you couldn't take your family to. That's why I kept an eye on the community festival. And I checked with the police, no events. So, and I know what 7 people have 7 different opinions, and I respect everybody's opinion. But there's nothing like, I used to take my son to Cincinnati Reds baseball games, and it would be without fail, I'd sit in front of some drunk, spilling beer all over us during the game.
Didn't offer any to you either.
No, well, he put some on me, but anyway, my point is, this is just to the event, to the 10 High Productions. I will keep an eye on it, and if we have problems, you won't get my vote the next time.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to put that out there. Anyway, after that, I have nothing more.
Thank you. Councilman Smith.
Happy Memorial Day. That's all I have. Thank you.
Councilman Urschel.
Yeah, I got to go to 2 events. One for the mayor. There was a CAP Community Day at the park, and I didn't know much about Community Action Partnership before that. I had a couple of contacts with them, but I was amazed at the spectrum of activities that CAP promotes to work with financial wellness and family wellness within our community. And so they have a number of support groups from working yourself out of poverty to housing assistance to heating and assistance to food assistance, and just a broad spectrum. And I'll tell you, I was very impressed by the energy and the commitment of their employees that were there, and to just wanting to be in our community and be an asset to our community. So once again, and it was very well attended by folks in our community. And I think a lot of folks in our community got a lot of good information on programs. And I would also give them kudos that they brought in a lot of other social services from our community to that event as well too. So folks not only got to meet CAP folks, but they got to meet a lot of other folks that can walk alongside of them. So kudos to them. The other one was an event put on by Five Rivers Healthcare. And many of you may not be familiar with them, but they reside over behind Green Memorial Hospital in the same building as the County Health Department. And their Five Rivers is a nonprofit health organization that their goal is to ensure that every individual in their community has what they would call a health home. And what I mean by that is many folks in our community, if they have a health issue, they don't have a family doctor, may not have a pediatrician, may not have a dentist, so they'll go to emergency. And it's very reactive kind of care, and that's very expensive care at that point, and it's a burden on on our county hospital. It's a burden on our first responders to address that. And their goal is to engage with whomever in our community does not currently have a health home. And they basically said, we want to be your health home so that we can help you do preventative care. And that's, they have a broad spectrum of that from just, from a family practice perspective to pediatrics to dental. And so I would encourage folks here in Xenia that if you're honest with yourself, you say, I really don't have a health home. I really, if I'm getting in trouble, I'm going to emergency, or I'm going to some other organization from a reactive perspective. I would encourage you to go see the folks over at Five Rivers and engage with them and find that health home. And I think that's important too. I was joking with them, all of our EMS folks, as they go out on runs, ought to be dropping off some of their literature to all those homes, because many of the folks that we do the emergency runs on don't have a health home. And so we get wrapped up in that as well. We're the first responders. And one of the things we found in our budget is we're losing about $1.2 million a year plus. Ryan, is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, the write-offs vary from year to year, but
Right.
it's well over $1 million.
Well over $1 million in terms of write-offs. And many of those folks that are calling us from an EMS perspective don't have a health home, and that's one of the reasons why they're calling us and going to emergency rooms. So anyways, kudos to that organization. They're fairly new. They've been in Dayton for a while. They're fairly new here to Greene County, and I'm looking forward to seeing us partner with them. And once again, for folks in our community, if you don't have a health home right now, I encourage you to go see them.
Councilman Dean?
I have nothing further to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vice President?
I would like to thank the mayor for having visited with us at First United Christian on Sunday. She was the principal speaker on Sunday morning service, and she did a phenomenal job. And she brought the entire family, and we stayed for lunch and had a great time. And I'm going to apologize to her tonight because she didn't mention the fact that tomorrow morning is the mayor's prayer breakfast, and I have not missed one for the last 5 years, and I'm going to miss tomorrow because I've got to be in Kentucky by 10 o'clock in the morning for a funeral in Lexington. So I'm going to not get there, but I have enjoyed being at the mayor's prayer breakfast each year for the last 5. But then that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Just a couple of items. First, thank you again to our Citizens Academy members, the entire class, but especially those that came and stayed with us for our unusually long meeting this evening. But thank you very much. This is where, as the saying goes, the sausage gets made at times. In terms of future opportunities coming up very soon, just after the Memorial Day weekend, we have eXplore Xenia's Fishing Derby, annual Fishing Derby this year. It is June the 1st, Saturday, from 9 to noon at Shawnee Park. The event is free, absolutely free, thanks to the generous sponsors that have been supporting this event for a number of years. The event's open to children ages 4 to 15. 4 trophies per age group will be awarded. All children registered are eligible for the door prizes, which include fishing and camping supplies, sleeping bags, flashlights, and other great prizes. And again, the emphasis, everything is free, including even the bait for the children to use. Just bring your fishing poles, come and have a good time. We'll hopefully have some great weather. Typically, there are somewhere between 50 and 100 or more children that will come out for this event and line Shawnee Park. I was there one year and watched one. I honestly don't know how this little boy landed a 32-inch catfish out of our Shawnee Lake, but he did, and everyone had a great time. So please come out, and if you have children, bring them, or if you just like to watch a great event with families and such, you're certainly free to do so. There'll be I think hot dogs and such things served as lunch. Next item, just a personal note. Our daughter is back from college. My wife and I are finding it difficult to believe that she will be a senior in college next year. But tomorrow is her birthday, so I am wishing Carolyn Engel a happy 22nd birthday on the 24th of May. And then finally, just as others have noted already, this upcoming Monday is Memorial Day. It is a very important day. It is not just a day off from work, but it is a day for us to reflect on the beauty that is this country and the people who have sacrificed so much for it to ensure our safety, security, and our freedoms over these 200 and some years that we have been a country. So if you see someone who is serving or a veteran, or if you have someone who has passed away that's a veteran, please think of them, please thank them for their service, for without them, it's hard to tell where we would be. If there's nothing further, I would seek a motion.
Excuse me.
Sorry.
I missed one thing, and I want to comment. I was on the CAP board for about 10 years, and I'm going to say this publicly. I've talked to several people. CAP would like to have a homeless shelter in Xenia. Bridges of Hope needs help financially. I can't get the two of them together. I don't know why. I don't know if there's egos involved, but to me, it's a perfect fit. CAP has the money, Bridges of Hope needs the money. So if anybody has any contact with, I've tried to get CAP to meet with Bridges of Hope to meet with CAP, and it hasn't happened. But we could have a homeless shelter. They've got the money.
Yeah. So Dale, I'm on the Bridges board, so let's do
Okay.
it.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yes, that makes sense.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much. So without anything further to add, I would ask for a motion, please, to go into executive session.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Lauterbach, second, please. Seconded by the Vice President.
Mr. President, just as a point of order, that would be for the purposes of sale or purchase of real estate as well as economic development pursuant to the appropriate statutes.
Thank you. I was just looking for my guidepost for the purpose of the executive session. And just as an item, we have a motion and a second. I'll entertain discussion in just a moment, but for the audience and anyone still watching us on television, we will obviously be adjourning into a room without public availability for the executive session. There is no intention on council's part to transact any additional business publicly this evening. We will come back out here and close the meeting officially. You're certainly welcome to wait here if you'd like, but we have no intention of coming back and transacting any business. Discussion or question on the motion, please. Seeing none, roll call.
Vice President Wallace.
Aye.
Councilman Urschel.
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach.
Aye.
Councilman Smith.
Aye.
Councilman Dean.
Aye.
Mayor May.
Aye.
President Eagle.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much.